Two, Raila scores very highly in product marketing. And you remember every 5 years, he engages in brand refresh or brand reinvigoration. The last 5 years, he saw himself as the people's president, which invigorated his brand. And also this time round, he was using Kamkunji to invigorate his brand by saying, I reject the presidential elections. However, he says he rejects the presidential election after the horse has bolted, after the train has left the station. In fact, if he thinks the presidential election is nothing to write home, he should probably consider resigning his international assignments that have got the blessings of the Kenyan government or President Ruto. For instance, when you serve in these AU roles or as a special peace envoy like President Kenyatta, you do it with the blessing of President Ruto. Now, if indeed Raila rejects the win of President Ruto, then he should resign his role as the African Union representative, because it means he is representing an illegitimate government. He should also tell his daughter to do the same, because we are talking about a presidential election in Kenya whose leadership you reject. Thirdly, he needs to give his voters false hope that in fact we have been winning this election, but our victory has been snatched. So he's given that hope right from President Moi now to President Ruto. Now, when you talk about this anonymous whistleblower who is linked to Jubilee, and Jubilee is a key cog of Azimio, and you and I have been in politics for a very long time to know that there are no accidents in politics, to know that everything is a choreography. People who manage politics score an A in event management, in doing a critical path analysis. So this whistleblower did not come from Mosocho or from the moon and say, Eureka, the votes were stolen. No. You even remember what Mr. Jeremiah Kioni said, that in fact in Mount Kenya, from the votes we've counted, so far it's 2.1 million votes, we got more votes than President Ruto. So this is part of a script. But at the end of the day, we have to appreciate something, that Raila is an enigma, and Raila will get a crowd wherever he goes. If he goes to my home in Mosocho this morning, he's going to get a crowd. But again, that's a reflection that during the last 5 years, under the Handshake Brothers, the economy was mismanaged, because it should worry any leader that on a Monday morning, you love Kamkunji packed to the rafters. You cannot tell me that these are people who work as bank tellers, or they are, you know, somebody has left a bank, or Professor Will has left his lecture hall to come and attend this rally. When you see those numbers, instead of giving yourself a pat on the back, you must ask yourself, as a leader, what am I doing to give these guys not just hope, because you know hope is not a strategy, but you know tangible leadership. In fact, what one would have expected, because Professor Ndung has released his budget proposals, one would have expected that during that rally they would have offered criticism to those proposals, because you remember during that meeting nobody discussed economics, and right now the elephant in the room is economics. But as my colleagues have indicated, at the end of the day, we need to sort out IBC, and we have said times above number, it's not becoming a broken record, that we must have predictable systems for unpredictable outcomes. And then when you have these commissions, they will serve as a manual. But more important, there must be criminal penalties and pecuniary penalties for anybody who attempts to frustrate the will of Mura, whether it's voting for an MCA or for a president. Because right now what happens is, you frustrate the will of Mura, you attempt to bribe IBC officials, then you go back to your favorite restaurant, have your pepper steak and a single malt whiskey, you are whistling away, while in fact the nation is in some sort of a bubble. You create attention. So we should have people behind bars, and we can get best practices. The US has been investigating the insurrection, you know, the allegations around Donald Trump. And even Brazil is about to start doing the same. Because if we do not address this critical issue of electoral justice, then people will stop voting, because they'll know it doesn't matter how I vote. A few guys are going to compromise the process. So in my view, if anybody is rejecting these elections, actually, if Mr. Raila Odinga rejects the win of Ruto, can he discipline all the Azimio leaders who have been rolling out the red carpet for William Ruto, starting with Gladys Wanga.
But isn't it Raila Odinga himself who called and asked the elected leaders to accept, you know, the development agenda that the government was proposing in those areas?
Now, that is a contradiction, because you are saying you do not recognize William Ruto as the president, but at the same time, you are telling your elected leaders from Azimio to roll out the red carpet. Actually, if you go through the press today, two governors...
For the purposes of, you know, the citizens on the common mwananchi to benefit from what the government is offering, right?
You know, I'm not a lawyer, but I've interacted with lawyers, and they say that you approach the courts with clean hands. So how can you say, roll out the red carpet for President Ruto in the morning, and then in the afternoon you say, I do not recognize him? Why can't you start by displaying Gladys Wanga, James Orengo, and any other person who has held meetings with him? And you know, at the end of the day, as Kenyans, we really need to wake up and smell the coffee. That with all these politics, when he says he's rejecting the win of President Ruto, whose interest is he actually serving? Is he serving his selfish interest, or is he serving the voters' interest? And are these selfish interests, all of them, are they aligned to our national and public interest? Because if he rejects the vote, how will that affect the economy? Will it compromise the economic growth? Because at the end of the day, Kenyans, we must run away from this Stockholm syndrome, where we are falling in love with our captors. They give us a beating, they frustrate us, but again, when we see them, we say, Hail Mary.
Okay, thank you, Dismas. 10 seconds.